All right, welcome back, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Liftoff. I hope you are ready to learn something new and exciting. So lean in, be ready. We have a very special guest today with us, Anthony James. Thank you so much for being with us, and excited to have you share some great nuggets of wisdom with
Yeah,
everybody.
my pleasure, Derek. Thank you. Hi, Keith. And nice to virtually see everybody. So thank you for having me on the show today. I appreciate it.
That's right. Anthony, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. Just a little background on our relationship. We formed a partnership with Remax Gold in Northern California back in 2018 with James O'Brien. And I got to know you from the very get-go. It's since grown to 6 states and 3,000 agents and craziness like that. But I've always admired your tenacity and the skill set that you bring to this business, having been a top producer, top producing agent, and then you segued into the leadership field. You had a heart of a teacher and you wanted to get into that. And you rose quickly through the ranks and become president of Remax Gold. And then you had an epiphany. You've been fortunate. You have a wife that's a superstar real estate agent herself. And you decided to make a change in the direction you're going. And while we missed you on the leadership meetings, we admired you for doing so, and we're real glad. And so you went to work with her, and then quickly your leadership came about, and you've now opened an office, and it's grown to about 20 agents and growing.
Yep.
Can't take the out of the leadership out of the leader, so I'm really proud of you, and I look forward to what you're doing. And you have a unique and different perspective that I think it'll be great for agents watching this, leaders watching this, really everybody, and even non-real estate related people. So I'm really excited to step in and get started. So thanks again.
Awesome. No problem. Thank you, Keith.
Yeah. So Anthony, for those of our viewers and listeners who aren't familiar with your story, how did you get involved in this wild world of real estate, and what are you up to these days with leading an office?
Yeah, I'll just start from the beginning. I got licensed in 2002. I was 21 years old at the time, and I didn't know I was going to get into real estate. Quite frankly, I didn't even understand what home ownership looked like. I didn't grow up in a home or in a family that owned properties or owned homes. And I was eager to make a difference in just how I was brought up to what I would eventually aspire to become. And so I was pretty motivated at a young age. I read a lot of books. I went to school at Sac State and got my marketing degree and had to self-fund my tuition and pay for it on my own, and took out a couple of small loans to, of course, help along with that process. But I got into real estate in 2002. I was serving tables at PF Chang's here in Roseville, California, and putting myself through college. And I had a real estate manager come in and sit at a table one day, and I'm whining and dining them and bringing my personality, trying to make a nice tip. And he's like, "Man, you're pretty personable, man. I like you. Have you ever thought about real estate?" And he handed me a business card. And again, in that moment, I was like, I don't even know what that means, right? So fast forward 6 months later, I'm licensed and I'm knocking on his door. It was a Remax Gold office here locally in Granite Bay. We had an office in Granite Bay at the time. And I get started with Remax Gold in 2002, and I attached to a team leader. His name was Tom Conway. And Tom was like the avid Mike Ferry, smile and dial, scripts and dialogues kind of guy. And so he literally, like day one, gave me a script from Mike Ferry, a list of FSBOs and expireds, a telephone, and a swift kick in the ass, and said, "Good luck, buddy. Welcome to real estate." Right. And so that was my introduction. And if you're an agent watching this, you know that going after listings and prospecting FSBOs and expireds, that's not your typical let's get started in real estate approach. Most agents typically work the referral network. They work with buyers by and large right out of the gates to get their feet wet and understand how to transact. But that was not my introduction. That's not how I got started. I was 21 years old. I was making these calls, and needless to say, it was tough, right? I got my butt kicked plenty, but I became a student of like really understanding the dialogue and the script and the approach and my salesmanship process. So I would literally record scripts of myself either on the phones or giving a mock presentation to a FSBO or an expired. And I got so obsessed with it, I would literally fall asleep at night listening to my script, listening to my own voice, so that it would really sink into my subconscious, so that it didn't feel scripted. It didn't feel rehearsed, so that when I got in front of the prospect, it was much more natural and fluid. And so Again, it was a real challenge, though. I'm not going to say it was an easy road. Again, I had age and lack of experience really working against me. Imagine a 21, 22, 23-year old showing up at the listing table talking about, I'm going to list your home when they had kids. A lot of these folks had kids that were older than me, right? So I had lots of challenge and had to really understand, what was I selling? What was my positioning? How do I bring value to this conversation? Because I didn't have the resume or the experience of a seasoned agent. I had to figure out what I was going to sell. So that's when I really leaned into the strength of Remax and made it less about what I could do and what my experience was, and more about the brand of Remax that the consumer understood, recognized, and already had a preconceived understanding of what value those agents had in the conversations. That's where I leaned in, man. I didn't hold back. I figured out how to talk about the global reach and that exposure. I figured out how to talk about Remax.com and that exposure and what that meant to the consumer. And some classic training that I got in sales was to wrap your conversation in like a feature, function, benefit type of framework, right? So if I was giving a presentation, I would have a slide of Remax worldwide in 110 countries. So feature, function, benefit. Features, here's what it is. Function is here's how it works. And then benefit is what's in it for you, right? Why does it matter? Who cares that Remax in 110 countries until you understand where the value is for you as a client, as a seller. And so I would work that script. I'd say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, one of the reasons why I've partnered with Remax is to bring you maximum exposure to your property. And one of the ways I do that is through the global reach of Remax. You'll see this slide here. Remax extends into 110 plus countries. So when we take your listing, we syndicate that listing on our global platform, which is global.remax.com. It takes your listing, it syndicates it into 110 countries and translates that listing into 48 currencies and 46 different languages. Do you see how that type of international exposure would bring more eyeballs to your property, right? Clearly, I've said a version of that like thousands of times, but those are the types of ways that I would frame just a handful of slides. It didn't need to be 28 minutes on Remax, but I could knock it out in 3 or 4 or 5 slides in 5 minutes or less and really establish some strength in my presentation by leaning into the brand of Remax. So that was like my early years, right? All listing focused scripts, dialogues, going on those presentations. And after a year or two, I got pretty good at it. I'd list 2 to 3 homes a month, sometimes 4. Keep in mind, back then, the real estate market, Sacramento, my median home value was like 200,000, right? 250,000. So wasn't like I was making a ton of money. I made okay money for being in my young 20s, but I was pretty productive and became pretty successful at that over time.
That's great. And then what was the epiphany that kind of led you to wanting more or something else, or a new challenge that got you in the leadership?
Yeah, so I had a good run, right, from 2002 to 2006, and then the recession hit. And I had plenty of wise agents around me saying, hey, man, save your money. But I was a fool. I was 23, 24, 25. I was making money. I was spending it, right? I was buying property on no income, no doc type loans. I was fully leveraged. I was buying cars. I was just, again, I didn't come from money. I didn't have money. I didn't know what it meant to manage money and really be smart with it. And so when the recession hit, I'll never forget, it was like towards the end of 2005 in a local market. And I think I had 12 listings or something. Like I had a big listing inventory and it was like a light switch. All of a sudden, like just nothing would sell. Nothing was moving. And all of a sudden listings started canceling, properties weren't selling, and boom, here comes the recession. I really struggled from 06 through 2010, like many agents. I had to redefine myself. I was hit hard financially. I lost both my properties. I got my car repossessed. I filed for bankruptcy. I was 26 years old. I'm like, dang, man, like, how am I going to do this? But I just had this determination to be like, I got to figure this out, whatever it takes. So I kept myself engaged in the business. I had to find side hustles. I DJ'd nightclubs. I served tables. I did whatever it took to just keep myself afloat while I tried to figure out how to work a short sale, how to figure out the REO game, and keep myself engaged in the industry. And so in 2010, as part of like my continued growth and desire to do more in my business and better equip myself and build my resume, I got my broker's license in 2010. And so at that point, I'm like, all right, maybe one day I'll open up my own real estate brokerage. I don't know what the future holds. And so fast forward a couple of years, 2013, I'm in one of our offices here at Remax Gold, and Keith Ard, who's now the Chief Revenue Officer and President for NorCal and Nevada, he had bumped into me in the hallway. He's like, "Hey man, have you ever thought about leadership?" And at that point, I'm 31 years old. I've got my broker's license. The market's starting to turn. And I'm like, yeah, like I'm in, like I'm definitely interested. I had my broker's license. And to be quite honest, I went into that kind of that season of my career thinking I'm going to go in and learn as much as I can so that I could then maybe one day go out and do my own thing. And flash forward 11, 12 years of leadership, I learned a lot, right? I opened offices, I managed offices, I worked my way up the ranks. As you mentioned, I eventually became the president and broker of record for Remax Gold. And that was quite the experience and journey over the last 12 years, and really understanding what it takes to open a branch, lead a branch, have value for your agents, all of the things that go into broker ownership and being that type of entrepreneur in an office environment. And so in 2023, I found myself really just reflecting on my life and my career, and 42 years old. And some people call that a midlife crisis. I called it a midlife review. It definitely was not a crisis, but I was thinking, man, I've been in this business for 22 years. What am I doing with the rest of my life? And as I thought about my leadership journey, I was really able to see my 11, 12 years really in two chunks of time. The first 5 years, I was in the branch, leading offices, opening locations in the front lines with the agents. And then in the second half of my leadership journey, I was more back of the house, right? I was broker of record, executive oversight, strategy, just the P&L side of our business, and learned a ton in that particular season of leadership. But at the end of it, I found myself saying, man, I miss being in the front lines with the agents, right? Like I want to go back to that. And that's where I made a decision in January of 2024 to step down from my role as an employee, stay with the company. I still love Remax Gold. I've been here for 22 years, but open my own office, but in partnership with the company. Because again, what I've learned is there's no way I want to go try to open up Anthony James Real Estate, right? Like it's just,
Right.
I've got all the support I need here at Remax Gold. I've got an accounting department, a commissions department. I've got a broker of record and risk management services. I've got all these great offices and managers that are available to help support my little world and the agents that I'm partnered with. It's really been honestly the perfect storm of opportunity for me now at this point in my career to branch off, stay with the company, but now build my own little world, my own little brokerage within the brokerage of Remax Gold.
That's
Yeah,
fantastic.
thank you for sharing that too, Anthony. As I listen to your story unfold and as you look in the rearview mirror, so to say, I see how things came full circle in a way, right? You got to a point where you realized your passion was really being in the front lines, but not letting go entirely of your heart for leadership and really giving
Right.
back. What is a day-to-day, what do your activities look like as you're leading agents in your office? And what's your mission right now
Yeah.
as you go about each day growing and helping coach agents?
Yeah, I think part of the way I've attributed some of my success in leadership really came out of how I was trained up as an agent, right? Just like that prospecting, calling, setting appointments, giving presentations. As an agent, I did that for a long time, right? 10 years. And so when I got into leadership, that was a very natural thing for me to carry forward. The skills and the activities that I did as an agent were the exact same skills and activities that I needed to do as a branch manager, or even now as a owner operator of my own little office within Remax Gold. So it's a lot of the same activities, right? It's having a database and a system and a CRM of the existing agents. So my existing book of business, your clients, right? As an agent, keeping track of those folks, taking care of them, serving them, supporting them. And then it's prospecting and reaching out for new agents to be a part of the office that I've opened up. And that sounds a lot like lead generation and lead follow up and calling on prospects and having conversations, the same thing that we would do as an agent. My day right now is filled with a lot of the same activities as a productive agent. It's calling and it's touching base with new agents and taking care of the existing agents as well. So that's by and large really the focus. And that's the beauty of, again, staying partnered with Remax Gold and doing what I'm doing. I don't have to go figure out how to be broker of record and be the operations person and be the facilities person and be the marketing person. The company has all that for me. I get to focus on
Right.
really two things: grow my office and take great care of the people that have entrusted a partnership with me and the office that I'm leading here. And those are the two things I love the most, right? Holding great meetings, building great communities, taking care and supporting the agent, coaching, training, developing the agent, and then reaching out for other agents and building on the environment that we've established thus far.
Yeah, when you're out there recruiting, and as we do, we run into people, and it seems like there's a fight between two models, right? There's a cost, low service model that seems to be attractive to people. And then there's a more of the legacy brands that are high cost, high service. And it seems, and then there's a blur in between. And it seems though that people tend towards one or the other. I think you'll agree with me that with Remax, get a little bit of both, that we're not as low cost as the no service, hang your license kind of place. It's surrounded by productive agents. But we also provide a lot of bang for your buck at probably more aggressive compensation plans than many of the other well-known national brands. Do you see that? You encounter that out there? And I know I'm kind of asking a question that I know the answer, but one of the things that I try to talk to agents that we're trying to attract to our company is that it's really not what you make per transaction. I mean, sure, that's important, but it's how can you develop your career to do 3, 4, 8, 10 more transactions in a year? And do you have the platform that can give that inbound referrals and all the other things? I don't want to say too much, but how do you talk about that, and how do you perceive your world out there in the greater Sacramento area?
Yeah, great question. I talk a lot about that. When I'm working with an agent just this week, I've already had probably 4 conversations about this exact dynamic. And what we're talking about is, as an agent, as a salesperson, you have a decision to make. Do you sell on value or do you sell on price, right? Price, value. And there's plenty of agents out there that have a price approach where they're trying to capture market share by reducing price, right? And commissions and things of that nature. And I've been in both worlds. By and large, I've been here at Remax 22 years, and I've been a value-based approach in my dialogue and the value proposition, really trying to hone that in and make that as strong as I can. But there was a 9-month window of time where I left Remax and I went to a small independent company. It was called Sell Smart, and it was a discount brokerage environment, meaning I paid less to the broker than I was at Remax. And at that point, I was probably 24, 25 years old. And I'm like, I'm doing great. I don't need this Remax place. They're charging me an arm and a leg, right? So I went to Sell Smart. So there I was, the same guy, the same script and dialogue, the same approach on the phone, the same presentation, minus the brand of Remax. So before, when I was at Remax, I'd call and say, hey, it's Anthony with Remax. No worries. They know exactly why I'm calling. Then I'd say, hey, it's Anthony with Sell Smart. They're like, sell what? Sell who? What are you selling me? What do you want? So that was like the first hurdle I had to overcome, is like just the approach on the phone and the company that I was representing and the responses that I would have to navigate in that moment on the phone. And then I get there in person, again, same exact presentation, minus the brand of Remax. And so what ended up happening over that course of 9 months is I became the price leader, right? I'm just going to charge less. I created marketing for things like list your home for $29.95. I still have some of these old postcards, like $2,995 flat fee listing service. So after about 9 months, and at the same time, I was going to a Sac State, I was in a consumer behavior class and a salesmanship class. And I'm like, what am I doing, man? Like, I'm paying less to the broker, but I'm making less on the transaction. I'm just going to go back to Remax and maybe pay a little bit more, but it's going to allow me to establish more value and confidence in my presentation so that I can retain more of a top line gross commission in those environments. And so that was like that short window of time where I personally saw the difference and how the consumer would interact with me, the types of questions, the way they would challenge me. It was uncomfortable. And I was 9 months. I was like, all right, enough of this. I'm going back to Remax. And obviously I haven't turned my back since. And so that's the world that I still believe exists now more than ever, is this like value price world, especially in today's world with NAR compensation lawsuits. You got all this national media that's been floating around for the last couple of years. You've got every Wall Street tech type of company like your Redfins, your Open Doors, and plenty of others that have deep pockets that spend a lot of money to market directly to your clients and my clients. Right? I get the direct mail from Open Door. I see the billboards for Redfin that say list for 1%. If I'm seeing it and I'm receiving it, so are my clients. So if I just have that basic awareness to recognize that, yeah, I know my clients love me and trust me, but doggone it, they're still getting marketed to by my competitors. And
Yeah.
they're reading all these national headlines. So even though I might get the call, subconsciously, there's something going on that says, okay, I know I can get it for less. Maybe I could do it faster with Open Door. Maybe I don't even need a realtor. What's up with this compensation? They got all these questions. So when we show up today, now more than ever, we are under a massive microscope, right, of value. What are you doing to sell
Now
my
more than
house
ever.
and justify your commission? So that's where now more than ever, it's like we have to understand how to differentiate ourselves and really communicate and establish that value. And so again, now more than ever, not a lot's changed in my mind. I've been doing this for 22 years, establishing the brand as part of that conversation. But that's where it's just a game changer. There's things that we can say at Remax that nobody else can say. Nobody else can say they're in 110 plus countries, right? Nobody else can say that their company website, like Remax.com, got 120 million visits last year, right? With consumers landing on their site. And that's all because of that national advertising, right? It drives
Right.
the traffic, it drives the awareness. And my hat's off to Remax LLC, man. They're smart. Like the way they have changed and altered their marketing message that goes direct to the consumer, they'll look at studies from like NAR. NAR will publish an annual survey to consumers to say, hey, consumer, what's the most important thing when you select an agent? What are you looking for in the agent you select? The types of qualities. And that survey, if you pull it up right now, you'll see at the top of it, it's okay. The consumer wants somebody they can trust. They want somebody that's experienced and knowledgeable and understands the local market, has a reputation. So if you pull up Remax LLC's advertising campaign right now, what keywords are they using in their advertising? Experience and trust. Those are the two big ones.
Right.
Experience for today's market on billboards, voted number one most trusted agents on billboards, on radio, on television. So that's laying the foundation for when the agent gets in front of the client, there is already value established subconsciously because they've seen the advertisements. So it's our job to remind them of that and
That's
show them
correct.
that and make sure they're aware of it at the forefront of this conversation, not just maybe bubbling around in their head. Take 4 minutes and just say, hey, I'm with Remax because of these 4 reasons. It helps you as a seller, and here's why.
Yeah. All things being equal, Mr. Consumer, Mrs. Consumer, can you see how this might help you in some way? You have a leg up. When I talk to agents, I say the amount you invest in being part of the Remax network is very small. And it's tough to quantify and proof, but we've seen people come and we have seen people leave,
Yeah.
not dissimilar to what's happened to you. And we tracked in the production definitely increases when they join us and decreases when they go. It's something that I paraphrase what Mike Ferry has said in the past, where you show up, you give your script, you do your presentation, and don't be attached to the outcome, because there are people you will encounter. It's purely on price. They don't see any value in you. You have to work harder to really get them to see the value in you. But there's going to be a certain number of people that they flat are only going to pick on the price, no
Yep.
matter how much it. And there's going to be some time you just have to make. That's okay. Next, let's keep going,
Yeah.
and keep going to the person that will appreciate you, and then they build that rich, robust network of a database that will feed you over time.
Yeah, and I have come across so many agents, right? They're deep into their careers, and by and large, their business is by referral, right? And that's a beautiful place to be in your business. But it also is a false sense of security to think that everybody that calls you is a slam dunk home run, knocking out of the park. I'm going to go get this listing. It's a come list me call, right? So often you don't know if you're competing against somebody else. And a lot of times, because they're getting all these marketing messages. So you always need to be prepared. And I encourage every agent, whether or not this person have done 3 deals with this person, still show up prepared and still touch on the value and the brand of Remax to just remind them of it. Again, you don't need to be long-winded, but do yourself a favor, give yourself 2 or 3 minutes to just touch on that and establish that value. And I'll give a quick story. My wife just went on a listing presentation yesterday. And again, most of the time you don't know if you're competing, but this particular seller let my wife know, hey, just so you know, like we're talking to another agent, and that agent is at Realty One Group here in our local market. And so she's, oh man, like I'm really competing for this thing. Like she's all nervous and wants to go win and do a good job. And you hear me in this conversation. She hears this like weekly, right? Like this level of like enthusiasm and conviction around leaning into the brand. And I'm like, now more than ever, who you're going against, right? So let's make sure we touch on those things. And so she absolutely did worldwide, Remax.com. I gave her one more tool, and this is a tool that anybody can pull up. It's a website called SEMrush.com, SEMrush, SEMrush.com. And what that website does is simply rank website traffic. So I pulled up Remax.com in the last 30 days, 3.5 million hits on the website. And I pulled up Realty One Group in the last 30 days, and it was like 250,000, right? So I said, hey, we're not trying to bash this other agent or this company. That's not the approach. It's to highlight the difference, right? Hey,
Right.
Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I know you're talking to the agent over Realty One Group. Nope, like great company, great agent. I'll give them that. But here's why I'm here, right? Because when you list with me, Remax.com is getting all of this traffic because of all that national exposure and advertising that you're probably aware of. Oh, yeah, I've seen the billboards, right? Like you get these buying cues. And again, Realty One Group, 250,000 hits on their website. And it's only because they don't advertise to the consumer. You'll never see a Realty One Group billboard or hear a radio
Right.
ad or anything like that. Again, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a different strategy. That's not what they
Correct.
do. That's what we do. And that's why I'm here to bring that exposure to your property.
Right.
And she got the text this morning, by the way, she's getting that listing. So that was awesome.
Nice.
Yep.
Yeah. Fantastic. And those are the kinds of stories that reinforce everything that you're saying. Is it's nice to have those scripts, right? And nice to have those things that you firmly believe and you communicate with conviction. But when you have those texts where, hey, you won the listing, it's a reminder that, man, this is the real deal. Like when the rubber meets the road, that trust, that experience goes a long way
Yeah.
to the consumer and establishing that credibility from the front end. So, I had a question with regard to, as you look back across your career as well, and maybe an agent who's listening to this is curious to learn from some of your successes. What's one thing that you would say that you've learned throughout your career that you know now that you wish you would have known when you were getting started hammering the phones with that fire lit beneath you?
Yeah, it's really discipline and consistency, right? In anything that you're doing. One of my favorite books is by Darren Hardy, Compound Effect. I'm sure you guys have heard of it. Many people have, but it's such a simple read. And the concept for me was like, okay, this really makes logical sense, right? Like small, consistent activities and behaviors and disciplines every single day over long stretches of time is where the win comes and the victory comes. And you see those results over time. And so that would be the biggest thing. And we all know that, right? I'm not saying anything new. We all know like, hey, if I want to get in shape, I got to be disciplined and I got to be consistent. And I got to give it time. And it's the same thing, right? We all know that, but actually doing it, right? And so having some accountability around that is also another piece to that equation, right? Okay, we know discipline and consistency. Yeah, I've heard that a million times, right? And I've also heard about accountability, but when you put the two together and it helps and you hold yourself accountable with an accountability partner or some sort of structure that's holding you accountable to the activities and the disciplines and the actions that you need to do on a consistent daily basis inside of your business or for your health or your marriage or whatever it is, like you will see the results. Like it will happen. I've seen it time and time again, and I've experienced it myself in a variety of different areas of my life, not just business, health, fitness. Like you got to put in the work, and it doesn't have to be a lot. It doesn't have to be 5 hours of prospecting a day. It could just be 30 minutes a day, but you do it every day, right? And
Right.
you're consistent with it. And if you do that over 12 months, you're going to get deals. Another great example is open houses. So many agents are like, okay, I know I need to hold open houses, and they'll go do an open house, or maybe they'll do 2 or 3 open houses. But again, no level of consistency. I'll highlight the fact I say, hey, what would happen if you did 100 open houses in the next 12 months, 2 a week, right? If you did 100 open houses, you're going to get really good at it. You're going to become a master of that strategy. You're going to go deep in how you set it up, how you engage with the people that walk through. Your capture of people coming in to signing in over time will improve. Like you're going to get really good at it. And so again, we all probably intuitively understand that and see that and know that. but actually doing it and taking the action is where the rubber is going to meet the road. And having some sort of accountability structure can be critical to that. I still have a weekly accountability call with a buddy that lives in Tennessee every single week at Monday morning at 7:05 a.m., right? We hop on a 15-minute Zoom. What are my goals? What are my commitments for the week? And then throughout the week, we're texting, checking in. How are we doing? And we've gotten pretty extreme with it over the years. Like, we give each other, there's consequences. If I don't do what I say I'm going to do, I got to give $100 to a charity or something like that. Or like, I got to go do a cold plunge in Folsom Lake at 5 a.m. and stay in there for 1 minute, right? Or I got to shave my head if I don't do what I say I'm going to. Like, we've done
That's a
wild
good
things like
motivation.
that, like just to put some like motivation behind it, right? Like, I got to do what I say I'm going to do, or else I'm going to have to pay the price for it one way or another. So again, I'm not saying everybody's got to do that. If you want to like spice it up a little bit with your accountability partner, layer in some consequences, right? Make it hurt if you don't do what you say you're going to do, versus just getting on the call and say, sorry, Charlie, I didn't do what I did. Say I was going to do last week. Let's see how it goes this week. No, feel the pain, right? So when you feel the pain and that discomfort, it's like, all right, I don't want to do that again. So I'm going to make sure I hit my 20 contacts for the week or whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. I've also noticed that competitive individuals seem to have a little bit of a leg up because they're not afraid to compete. They're not afraid to lose on occasion, but they want to win. And I know that includes you. You were a high school wrestler, and I know you were into Jiu-Jitsu or MMA of some sort. You even actually competed the last few years. That by any chance?
Yeah, man, I got some fresh jiu-jitsu scratches from this morning's training session, man. Yeah, I'm 4 years in. I've been training jiu-jitsu for about 4 years. And that's oh man, it's a love-hate relationship with jiu-jitsu. I'm 43 years old. It's not easy on my body, right? I don't enjoy going in at 6 a.m. and getting strangled by another grown man that's not comfortable. There's nothing comfortable about that, right? But one of the things that I have forced myself to do in life, in my career, personally, professionally, whatever it is I got to get uncomfortable, right? When I'm uncomfortable, that's when I grow the most. And
That's
so
right.
this journey of jujitsu, it's highly uncomfortable. It is terrible. Like, anybody that says, I love jujitsu, I don't know if they're really telling the truth. It gets fun when you get good, but I'm 4 years in. The belt progression goes white, blue, purple, brown, black. That belt progression to go from white to black is like probably a 12-year journey, right? So my motivation behind it today is less about the enjoyment factor. It's more about wanting to also demonstrate for my kids and my family that I practice what I preach, right? I'm coaching my kids on the baseball field, and I'm telling them to give it their all, to strike out, you fail, you get up, you try again, you keep going, you keep working at it, you put in the work, you're going to get better. I'm preaching those things. I also want to live it out. And so right now, that is the main motivation in my jujitsu journey, is like, when I walk in the door at 7:05 and I'm battered and bruised and bloody, it's, man, Dad's putting in the work. And so for me to go from white to black, it's going to take 12 or more years. And so my kids they'll see that whole journey, right? My boys are 8 and 10, my daughter's 6, and assuming I continue the journey, which I have every intention to, those kids will be in high school or beyond by the time I reach that pinnacle or that goal. And I want them to see that journey. I want them to say, man, Dad put in the work, right, to get that black belt. That was a part of that journey. And so anyways, I don't know where I got on that tangent. The bottom line is, though, is getting uncomfortable, right? And having the other layer to this is like the why behind it, right? We've all heard that too. But again, I don't love jujitsu, but the reason why I do it is to demonstrate that for my kids. And for us in real estate, and finding that passion, that why that drives you, is another part of the fuel that will add to your success, of course.
If we learn to do the hard and do those things that are a little difficult, it serves us in everything we do, and it translates into success in real estate. As I look around those agents within my company, particularly as I get to really know about them, is they're not afraid to do hard things, not even real estate stuff. One of our top agents, her son's a Navy SEAL, 10, 12 years. I was a Navy SEAL, now retired, and highly successful, and a great guy. Derek knows him as well. And, I hear what they did, talk about doing hard stuff that, door knock for an hour. Are you kidding me? Are they going to be shooting at me?
Yeah.
Do I have to carry a 70-pound backpack? Is it 118 degrees? But my point about that, and I know you've done hard stuff. I think you've done the Andy Frisella 75
hard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
75 or more than once, as I have. And so sometimes you do these things so that you're better at everything in life, relationships, and as it pertains to real estate, folks, if you learn to do that and then you time block your time and you make sure that you do we have a thing where we do your 5 daily non-negotiables. There's 5 things you're going to get done every day. And if you don't get them done, you don't end your day. You just got to do them things. And as it relates to real estate, right at the top, the thing is that consistency and that discipline, as you so clearly and properly laid out, it has to include lead generation. We all want to aspire to this robust database that's feeding us, but to be a superstar, first of all, you got to feed and grow that database. And secondly, you want to develop that, but you always want to go after some now business to feed your database and to get some business and really fill in the gaps. So I know that you've been a proponent of the bike ferry from the beginning of your career. As you're teaching, are there other ways that you're I know there's lots of ways in the cap. So are you embracing those other things and preaching some of that to the folks you lead as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Building the database, lead generation, adding people. That I've been talking to agents and I'm like, man, generating the lead is almost like the easy part nowadays. Really, the fortune is in the follow-up and having the system behind
Yeah.
that's going to help market. And so for myself, the office that I'm leading and building, we're leaning into everything that the company has. So we are in Bold Trail. I'm making sure that campaigns are running. We're property boosting. We're doing smart social ads. We're doing all of that stuff so that the leads are funneling right in, and we're building that database. We can see the evidence and the results, and then making sure that all those campaigns are firing off and following up and nurturing those leads over long stretches of time. Because again, we're talking about success for us in sport or physical or business or life, right? Like in the discipline and the consistency. It's the same thing. You generate a lead, there's got to be a discipline and a consistency to follow up with that person for a long time, right? Long time, especially nowadays, right? I saw a stat, and I'm probably going to butcher this, not precise, but pretty close. A couple of years ago, there was like maybe 5 million transactions done in the United States, but there was like 40 million leads sold, right? That's a huge discrepancy, right?
Yeah.
So it ain't hard to get leads, right? But we've got to get them into the system and then follow up and have automation and technologies as part of our strategy to keep in front of those people so that over time they'll turn into some level of a hand raiser. And so that's the game as I see it now. The hard part is not generating the lead. The hard part is staying in touch and following up for 12 months to then convert that lead. Most folks don't have the patience or the long-term vision and strategy to be like, okay, this business takes a level of faith like no other, man. Like just blind faith, man. Okay, like I know the stuff that I'm doing, like eventually there's going to be a harvest. Like I want to believe that. And we can get excited and believe that today, but can we believe it tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day? And that's where it gets really tricky, is when you go a month or 2 or 3 months doing all the right things, but not getting the harvest yet. Then it gets tempting to say, I don't know if this is working. Maybe I need to try something different. And little did you know, maybe you were just one more week of breaking open the dam before the opportunity comes.
One more hour. That next call.
You have to keep going, right? The best real estate business analogy that I'll give is just like farming, right? Like anybody that's tried farming, we all know that sending 1 postcard or 2 postcards a month or 2 just does not get the job done. You got to be consistent over and over again for 12, 18 months, 2 years. And then all of a sudden you're rooted in that community and you're the one getting those calls. But trying it out for a month or 2 or 4 months, it's a waste of money. Don't do it. Find a lane and just go for it and say, I'm committing to this for 12 months, whether it's open house, a farming strategy, a lead gen strategy with a nurturing campaign for 12 months. Like commit to something for a year and watch the result at the end of that year.
That's right.
Absolutely. I think, I'm sure you guys have seen this picture before, but there's this analogy of somebody who's mining for gold, and they're in the cave and they're chipping away and they can't see on the other side of this very tiny, thin little piece of like cave is a bunch of like treasure or gold. And it's such a relevant analogy and picture of exactly what you're talking about. There's that temptation, especially without the accountability or without the structure and the regular rhythm of following up, to just give up, right? You just get discouraged. get down on yourself, you're not seeing the results that you want, maybe I should try this. And I think the temptation that I see and I observe from agents is they're either trying to do too many things at once, and so they're not staying to a particular lane, or they're just giving up one hit too short or several hits too short. So for somebody in that position, I think it's incredibly important to plug into whatever it is they're doing and to stick with it, like you said, for a year. So I just wanted to comment on that, because too many people, especially in today's day and age, we see that culture of instant gratification, right? And even with lead generation, the people on the other side of the lead who's maybe filling out a quick form, they're on to the next thing. They're on 3 other websites, or they want it right away. But how can we go against that and motivate and inspire other people and keep them on track? What would be your advice to somebody who's in that spot where they are trying different things and they aren't really sure where to plug in?
Yeah. I guess my response to that would be tracking, right? Like track your activities. And so the example I'll give is I'm coaching with a couple agents right now. And one of the agents, we had this whole open house conversation, right? Imagine if, right, you did 30 open houses, 40 open houses, 50, like whatever number you can commit to. So he committed, said, okay, I'm going to do 25 open houses this year, which is more than he's ever done, right? He's probably done maybe 5 a year or something like that, here and there sporadically. So I'm going to double down. I'm going to do 25 open houses. We did a review of his business last year. And even with the handful that he did, he got a deal or two from it, right? And it's okay, let's go deeper in that vein. Let's get better in that. So we're committing to the 25 open houses. But what I've done with him is we've created just a simple tracking sheet. It's okay, here's the date of the open house. Here's the address of the open house. Here's how many groups that came through. And here's the capture rate of leads that you got from that open house, right? And so far, year to date, he's done 3. And so he got all excited. We were looking at it. He's okay, like I'm seeing some traction here, right? Like I can see a physical sheet that says, look at what I've done and look at the results that I'm getting. Now, I don't have a deal yet, but I got a couple of leads so far. And so then I said, now imagine once we get to 10, 15, and 20, now we're going to have some real data and information to improve your open house strategy, right? Like now I'll know how's the capture rate. You had 28 groups come through and only 2 people signed up. What happened? What were you saying? What was the objection? The objection is I've got an agent, right? Everybody came in and said they had an agent. Okay, so either that's accurate and probably a lot of them do have agents, but did you ask a follow-up question? Oh, okay, you're working with an agent. So did you sign a buyer representation agreement and commit to that agent? Yes, I did. Oh, was it exclusive or non-exclusive? Right? Let's go a couple layers deep, right? Would you be open to interviewing another agent for the job of helping you find the right property, right? Ask a few more questions. So just after 3 open houses, because we were able to track those 3 and see that the capture rate was pretty low, like I think he had it was like 18 groups and 2 people captured. And this was the conversation. It was like, everybody had agents. I was like, what did you say? And so he's okay. So now going into the next round of open houses, he's going to refine the script a little bit, make a few tweaks, right? And then one of the open houses, I was going to rush and I didn't even have a sign-in sheet. I was like, okay, we got to be prepared, right? Prepare yourself, budget the time. Like that's on you, right? So those are some simple things that we were able to draw from that coaching call just after 3 open houses and a simple tracking sheet where we had information which drove our conversation to help him in his next round to refine his approach and get better at that strategy.
Very good. Yeah. Anthony, we want to be respectful of your time. This has been great. I really wish we had a Joe Rogan format because I know we could fill 3 hours. There's so much more here. I know you so, and I'm really proud of the success that you're having. One thing I'd say, if you're watching this and you're in the greater Sacramento area and you're an agent or you want to be an agent, whether you're new or struggling or high producer, highly recommend you have a conversation with Anthony. We can maybe add your contact information in here for that purpose. And if you're in Southern California, Derek and I would like to talk to you where not only you get to engage with us and all our leaders, but part of being Golden Nation is you get access to Anthony James and some others that will help you in your journey. You never know what that one moment will do to you. And, another time we could talk about some of my aha moments, but we really appreciate you. I look forward to seeing you in person someday really soon. Continued success to you. Do you have any parting shots before I turn it over to Derek to close us down?
No, I just want to say thank you for having me, man. I had a lot of fun. It's good seeing you guys again. And my
So
hope
good.
and desire is that anybody that's tuned into this today, just like you said, gets that one nugget or something I said resonates. Just shoot me a message. Just say, hey, man, I listened to your thing. And that one thing you said, if you just give me that affirmation, that's what also continues to fuel me to do what I do. If anything hit for you, shoot me a text, an email. We'll make sure you have all the contact information.
I
Absolutely.
personally going to watch this over and over. I can tell you that. Derek, take us out.
Yeah, no, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Anthony. And make sure if you're not subscribed to our channel, do so. Share this with a friend if it resonated with you. And as always, keep selling. Stay safe out there.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you.
All right.